Hello. Hello, so I'm Pete, and I work for Amazon Web Services. I work as a prototyper in the spatial computing realm. So I work with customers directly, and what I would do is I would go and build prototypes with them. It's a period of 6 weeks. Maybe it's something like we want to work out how to integrate some new service or some new technology. So that's what I do at AWS. And in my view, I think over the next few years, like the cloud's going to be like front and center for the wave of spatial computing that is heading our way. Quite a bold statement, but I'll go with that. And at AWS, we rely on our partners to productionize XR use cases. So luckily, I have 3 amazing partners with me today, and they're going to tell you all about the use cases. So we'll just do a quick round of introductions. So I'll hand first to you, Hervé.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Do you want to play the slide, or? Yep. So I'm Hervé. I'm with Inactive. Inactive, we have a very particular focus. We focus on all VR applications that cannot run on a VR headset, simply because there is not enough power in the headset, for example, or because for confidentiality reason, it is not possible to download 3D assets to an end device. So there are many reasons why you can end up to that difficulty. And this is something that you find very much into manufacturing, for product design, for example, or that you can find in construction. You're building a big facility, you don't want that 3D design to be in an end device like a headset that could be stolen, for example. Then you have a big security issue. So we focus on all that, and what we do, we make it possible then to run them in the cloud and stream to a VR headset, because in the end user doesn't like constraints, and the end user simply wants to be able to do the job quickly, and that means with a laptop and a headset where you can just click on it, as we all know. So that's what we do, and that's the reason why you see a number of familiar names on that slide. We take Unity, Unreal, of course, but we take very specialized names like Bentley Systems, like Autodesk, like all those applications that are very industry specific. We run them in AWS Cloud, and we stream them in a secure way to the end user.
Thank you. Hello everyone, Ed MacIntyre from Sphere. So I'm the Business Development Manager for the UK, Ireland and Nordics. At Sphere, we believe that collaboration potential is in crisis today. And that's what we're trying to fix. So we're trying to bridge the gap between 2D interfaces, such as Teams and Zoom, where they don't really quite cut the mustard, and in-person meetings where they're logistically challenging, cost ineffective, they have a negative impact on carbon footprint as well. So Sphere is a device-agnostic XR solution, so we want to democratize the use of XR across enterprises, and that's across headsets as well as mobile and desktop, to be able to bring people together, having parity of choice over the devices they use in their workplace, to essentially explore 3D models in various different industries. Thank you.
Good to see you, everybody. My name is Juha Lystilä, and I'm Vice President at Immersal. Immersal offers very accurate, high-precision spatial positioning service, and it's a cloud-based service. And it can be applied to a variety of devices, systems, robotics, or AIs. It basically mimics human comprehension of spatial information and your environment. We can learn our environment through the camera view, and then we can also recognize that environment through the camera view. We have a global service thanks to AWS, and most of our customers are industrial, so we have a lot of things going in mining, we have things going in the energy sector, usually kind of more high-value use cases. And our technology also allows you to visualize, so we have AR component to our technology that allows you to place content very accurately into the real-world view. So that's it.
Thank you all. So I think for me, if I was sitting there in the audience, I'd be thinking, okay, now make that solid for me. I want to understand what use cases you're powering in production. So maybe pick your favourite one and tell us a little bit about it. So I'll choose Hervé first.
May I just start by making a poll? Who's from manufacturing in the audience? Who's from architectural construction? A bit more, 5, okay. Good, then I'm going to choose architecture and construction. Then, so let's take the example of you building a big project. So of course, if you're making a big project, whether it's a factory, whether it's a chemical plant, or it's you have a digital model. You have, and you most likely work with BIM, as we call it. Now, what happens is that many companies have scarce resources, particularly of expertise. So it's rare that you can actually have a project manager making a physical meeting to review a project. And what we see in customers is that they, from their BIM model, they are reviewing kind of, usually every 2 weeks is a good thing. They spend 2 hours every 2 weeks with experts that are in separate locations, sometimes across continents, sometimes same, but to, basically to walk through the BIM model of what they're building and looking for the mishaps, basically, looking for what is the problem in the design and documenting what needs to be changed. And through the construction, even they go into reviewing what is actually built. So you basically laser scan what's been built and you superimpose it with what should have been built. And then you compare. So that, of course, allows to take, either you accept what's been built or you decide you need to have corrective action and so on. But, all that, allows to reduce the time to build, so basically reducing error and reducing the cost of rework. And knowing that in construction, the cost of rework is kind of 5% on average, whereas the average margin of a good company in construction is 2.5%. So you can see, if you do that right, the return on investment is pretty great.
Thanks, Hervé. And so I'm going to give the same question to Ed.
Thank you. So I think in today's market, we're seeing a decrease in labour, skilled labour, sort of undergone vocational education. So we work with Volkswagen in their automotive manufacturing and assembly line in Germany. And it typically takes them around 6 months to onboard those skilled technicians that are going to work on that line. Their curriculum was very classroom-oriented, quite old school. Lots of books, paper, PowerPoint, whiteboards, and not a lot of time actually out on the shop floor working with the machines, the equipment, the tooling that they'd be using. So what we did is we built a digital twin of every single stage in their assembly line, allowing those students to really get hands-on in a mixed reality and augmented reality scenario with those, with the equipment and the tools that they'd be using. Doing this really increased, the engagement of all of these trainees in their job, and they found much more enjoyment out of it, which was a nice takeaway from it. But more importantly, we reduced the training time from 6 months to 6 weeks. That's a huge value add for Volkswagen because they could have more trained technicians on their operation line, more output of cars, and reduced cost of the total training. So that's one use case that really excites me and I want to share with you today. Thanks.
All right. Our technology has been applied in multiple different industries, so it's kind of hard to choose what's the most entertaining use case. But I think Ed touched it very well here, that you really have to seek the value for your customer. Our technology has been deployed in sports entertainment. We have installations in retail. We are 2 kilometers underground, and we are in energy production. So our technology fundamentally can enable navigation and asset management almost everywhere. in these private enterprise environments. Fundamentally, if we pick up an example, let's talk about refineries. Large-scale refinery operations, they cost from $500,000 to about $1.5 million per hour. Now, industry downtimes in larger refineries are about 90 hours a year, so that's about $90 million. And those operations are massive. They're the size of the city. If you have an emergency situation or unplanned downtime, you have the team to scramble, and literally every minute costs tens of thousands of dollars along the way. Our asset tracking and also the navigation capabilities can speed up these repairs, these kind of responses to these incidents significantly. It may not sound much, but we can shave up to 10-12% of the response time. Now, that reduction actually already translates up to $10 to $15 million per refiner. So I think, and all of these actually include an AR component, because we really try to bring the kind of existing enterprise data into the view of the team on the ground, and at the same time to have the control perspective to it from the management of the field operations. So that's a kind of an overlay on how we see the value. You have to dig into it, you have to calculate that, but that's how you are successful in this business.
So you may have noticed that I work for AWS, just to bring that home a little bit. So what I'm interested in now, and thanks for that, that's a great description, it brings the use cases home to me. So how are you using AWS? And I'm going to say now 3 random words, and I want you to pick one of those, or all of them, and build your answer around that. So the words that I'm going to say now, I was tempted to say something completely ridiculous, but I'm going to say the words security, scalability, what was the other one? Compliance. So first to you, Hervé.
Yeah, on our side, we leverage mostly on security and scalability, because that's where we are in the value chain. Scalability is an obvious one. For just to show one of the specificity of streaming virtual reality, that it is very sensitive to latency. So bottom line, you have to stream from a data center that is not far away, kind of 500 kilometers from the end user. So when you're a global company, how do you want to secure that? You need to have a big cloud footprint, and that's what AWS has. We stream from 57 locations worldwide today, so kind of covering all the North American, European, main Asian countries. So kind of where there is most of the industries. So without that, it wouldn't be possible because of latency. And the second is security. By sense, we are in workflows that are security sensitive. If you look at car design review in VR, well, you don't want your design to leak, because if you've got a 5-year product life cycle, if it leaks at the middle, you've lost 2 years. You're on 3 years. So that's an example, but they're also very much, I would say, safety or security connected use case. When I was mentioning if you're building a big plant, it has to remain secure, and you don't want the 3D models to get in the hands of potential attackers, terrorists, or whatever. So that because one is there, you can't change it. It's there forever. So I would say there's 2 main aspects. One is that since we stream, the 3D assets never enter the device. We only stream frames. So it's only a very limited pixels, basically, that we stream. So the 3D assets structured never leave the server. The further they get is to an AWS server. And the second thing is that we leverage onto the transfer of data within AWS, within the data center, which are both super fast and secure.
Scalability, security, and compliance. Okay, I think first we have to view all of those through the eyes of enterprise scale software, and then secondly through the eyes of the XR use cases. We can't get away from the fact that we're wearing devices that have cameras, and when we're operating in really sensitive environments, such as the defense space that we do a lot of work with, we need to ensure that we're following best practices and processes. And AWS help ensure that we're compliant with all of those demands and requirements, right? So from our perspective, it just would not be possible to work in those extremely sensitive environments without having the help to comply with various different standards and regulations. And this enables us to deliver value to companies like RUAG, which provide military assets to the Swiss military, and then can connect spatially from different geographies around the world and put up screens and look at sensitive pieces of equipment. And that's how I view that, I think.
Thank you. I don't think Immersal would exist as a business without AWS. I know it's a strong statement, but fundamentally when we were still startup, we were kind of looking at options, and it's very easy to start developing things on your own PC at that point, where you're still in the garage. But what we found out very quickly is that our technology has broad application, and we realized that, okay, well, what if we suddenly get a customer from the United States, or there's someone from Brazil who wants to be our customer? And we started to push into the AWS and basically build the infrastructure on AWS. And it's amazing because you can literally transport your services near the customer anywhere in the world. A second thing we gain from AWS is credibility, because we're certified AWS partner, and that requires you to go through the technical certifications. That guarantees a certain level of security involved in your designs and your infrastructure. But at the same time, AWS is well known for the network security, capabilities, low downtime, and all those kind of give us some boost in terms of even being a smaller company. You have this backbone you can leverage and you can grow with it. So I think that's the most valuable thing for us from AWS perspective.
Okay, so one of the things for me when I'm working as a prototyper is when I'm working with AWS Cloud, I can spin things up real quick. I can spin up whole architectures and I can tear them down just as easily. So this enables me to innovate very fast, extremely fast. So my question to the rest of the panel is, how have you used that? How has that enabled your companies to innovate quickly?
Well, maybe we're a little bit of a special case, but we actually use 100% on demand AWS. So yeah, what can I say more? because then we very quickly try and error and share it with individual customers.
How much would you say that's been a factor in? Because I imagine as as a spatial company, you have to sort of weather the peaks and troughs of the industry, right? So has that been a factor in keeping your company on the right track?
I'd say without that we would not exist, because by sense the usage, the need from the end user is distributed. It's not concentrated, so we can't. If we didn't have access to an on-demand distributed resource in a fairly homogeneous way across the world, then we would simply not exist.
Okay. Give this one a bit of thought. So, sorry, what's the question? Which question should you ask? The speed of innovation. Yeah. We're a startup, right? We're Series A 2 years ago. We actually ported all of our services over from Azure to AWS for many reasons. The support that we had, the hand-holding that our product and engineering teams had, the credits that were given to us to offset costs and everything, meant that we could sort of accelerate and innovate and meet our users where it mattered the most to them. Like, we're still a scrappy little company that, you know, takes their feedback and turns that into reality. Using the various services and support from solution architects and AWS has really enabled us to do that faster than any of our competitors. So, yeah, that's it.
Well, I think most of the innovation is still happening within the team itself. We are very unique technology as such, but AWS is kind of a sandbox for us. We can very quickly deploy, test different new approaches, new technologies, new integrations. And if they're successful, we can also deploy them to the commercial use very quickly. So we kind of have a lot of that infrastructure work that we don't have to worry about. And since we have already built on the platform, it kind of allows us to repeat that structure we already have. So that's the one thing. We rarely really have to discuss infrastructure issues internally. It's more about a specific use case, and we can focus more on the essential, which fundamentally is photogrammetry, digital layer representation, AR positioning, and so on. So I think that's the benefit.
Okay, now I'm going to take the opportunity to try to get some product suggestions. So, is there anything that you've come across, whilst you've been developing your products, that has made you think, I wish this were in the platform? If this were in the platform, this would really accelerate what we're doing. And I'll start that one with Hervé.
I'm not really sure there's one thing. Of course, we, like any user of services, we always see, could that be better? Or could we have visibility of that? But I would say, if we could have maybe, better visibility on the on-demand capacity, so that we can plan, then that's probably what would make the most difference, so that we could manage, anticipate.
At Sphere, we want to bring the eyes and the ears to large language models, right? So we want to be able to ask questions of the real world as well as the holographic overlays in there. But all of this data in our customers' environments is quite sensitive, and it's nuanced and different. So we want the ability to be able to sort of train these against specific data sets and requirements, so that we can have really good outputs and not hallucinations. Continuing to sort of work around these different services, including AWS Translate, incorporating that so that from around the world we can, I'm getting pushed off, but around the world we can sort of speak to each other in our native tongue, and then it will be translated automatically to the receiver.
Very much aligned with what Ed said, and with the risk of sounding like I'm from business school, always focus on the customer value. Even if you have the coolest technology ever, think what data the customer has. If you're creative, if you are a studio, if you do backend, if you do asset management, whatever, think what data the customer has available. What's the benefit of bringing it up front? What should I show? What is valuable? I think that's the biggest takeaway, because that will guarantee you business going forward.
And I think we're going to be called for questions in a second, but what I would say is if we run out of time for questions, we will all be around outside the room afterwards. Please come and connect, even if you just want to say hi, or if you want to have a discussion about an AWS architecture. Okay, thanks.
Wonderful, thank you so much. So if you have any questions, please feel free to come up to the mic over there, or just wave your hand and I'll come round. So are there any questions right now?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Great panel, appreciate it really. And I'm glad you mentioned construction. Maybe four of you, yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if you're gonna like the question. Maybe you can help me a little bit. We have a bit of a conundrum here. I'm glad you all mentioned security and data governance, absolutely essential. But all of your solutions that you presented that are developed on top of AWS platform cannot be used on AWS projects when you're building them because they are not approved from security perspective. How do we bridge the gap? I'm not sure this is a question for you or AWS. And just to give you a background, we build roughly $5 to $6 billion of data centers, and some of those are those with a smile.
Shall we? Maybe we can all have a go at that. I'll pass you over to Juha first.
So it comes down to the type of a data you're offering, and granted, there are industries and sectors that will absolutely don't want to have any data go outside of their own private networks for different reasons. But a lot of data is actually already existing outside, and the question really is that where do you get the performance gains by selecting what data can be outside of the organization and what can't be outside of the organization. That's one way to look at it. Sometimes you can't force, so you just have to go along the customer, and that's the way it goes. But ultimately, we've had about, I'd say, a significant minority of use cases have been where we've been forced to go with the private network and get kind of localized installation. So again, it depends on the business.
Yeah, I'd agree. It sort of depends on the business. We do everything from multi-tenanted to private cloud deployments on AWS and then on-prem bare metal solutions where required. But so the data inside, outside, we can do bi-directional integration with various different other software systems as well to bring that in-house. Yeah, we're a wrapper for various different services and systems that sit underneath this. But ultimately, the sort of governance that AWS provides with its sort of infrastructure architecture, solution architecture, enables us to do that.
Maybe I need to ask to make sure I understand exactly what the question is. Is your question about whether the solution could run within your virtual private network, or?
No, the question is why can't we use those solutions when we work on AWS projects? When we are building them.
Okay.
They are not approved.
Okay. I think I'm not, to be honest, I'm not familiar with what this exactly means, so I just suggest we discuss later on, and then I can answer in a relevant way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm tempted to answer. I mean, I think we need to have a further conversation about that a bit. But I mean, as AWS, we offer sort of on-prem. We could give you a rack in your, in your office. So we have an Outpost solution, for instance. So I don't know what it is that you need to keep local. We'd have to have a discussion about that a bit more, I think.
So thank you again for the best practice examples, and we'll take a short break, and we are back at 3:30 with Volvo Trucks. Thank you again.
Thank you.